You have been losing every single argument you have ever won. Think about that for a moment. Every time you demolished someone's logic, every time you proved beyond any doubt that you were right, you actually lost something far more valuable than the argument itself. The most dangerous law of power is the one your ego refuses to accept. Robert Greene wrote 48 laws that expose the hidden mechanics of influence, status, and control. CEOs study them, politicians weaponize them. But there is one law that almost everyone reads, agrees with, and then completely ignores. Because following it means doing the one thing that goes against every fiber of your being. Silent power wins. Today we are going to dissect this forgotten weapon. We will expose why your addiction to being right is the single biggest thing destroying your influence, your relationships, and your income. And once you understand this, you will never look at conflict the same way again. The silent weapon. Picture two people in a boardroom. One is arguing passionately, voice raised, facts flying, desperately trying to prove their point. The other sits quietly, listening, nodding occasionally, saying almost nothing. Who has the power? Your gut says the loud one. But every study on influence, every historical account of true leadership says the exact opposite. Never argue. In society, nothing must be discussed. Give only results. The most powerful people throughout history understood something that most of us never will. Arguments are a trap. Not because you might lose them, but specifically because you might win them. When you win an argument, you create an enemy. You create someone whose ego you just wounded in front of others. A wounded ego never forgets, and it never forgives. And that person will spend weeks, months, sometimes years looking for ways to undermine you. Not because you were wrong, because you made them feel small. Ego wounds never heal. Robert Greene understood this at a primal level. And the law he wrote about it is the most neglected weapon in the entire book. But this goes much deeper than simple conflict avoidance. The argument trap. Here is something that will bother you. The smarter you are, the more dangerous arguments become for you, because intelligent people are addicted to being right. They cannot help themselves. Someone says something wrong and their brain lights up like a pinball machine. They have to correct it. They have to show the evidence. They have to win. But winning is the trap. And you have been falling into it your entire life. Think about social media. Think about every comment section battle you have ever engaged in. Did anyone ever say, you know what, you are absolutely right, I changed my mind? Of course not, because that is not how the human brain works. Neuroscientists at USC discovered that when someone's core beliefs are challenged, the same brain regions activate as when they face a physical threat. The amygdala fires up. Cortisol floods the system. Their body literally enters fight or flight mode. You cannot reason someone out of a position they did not reason themselves into. So every time you argue, you are not engaging someone's logic. You are triggering their survival instinct. Survival, and no amount of evidence will overcome that primal response. You are fighting biology itself, and that leads us to the exact law Greene wrote about this phenomenon. Greene's insight. Law number 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. That is the law nobody uses. Robert Greene buried this principle in his masterwork, The 48 Laws of Power, and it might be the single most transformative idea in the entire book. Any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. Greene studied centuries of power dynamics, from the courts of Louis XIV to the boardrooms of modern Wall Street empires. And he found a pattern that repeated over and over across every era and every culture. The people who rose to the top almost never argued. They demonstrated. They let results do what words never could. Demonstrate, do not explicate, and show, do not tell. Think about the weight of that. The most powerful law in a book about power is essentially telling you to shut up, not because silence is passive, but because silence combined with decisive action is the most aggressive thing you can do. If this is starting to shift how you see your own behavior, hit like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning of the power shift. Because what comes next will change how you handle every conflict from this day forward. The real question is not whether you should argue less. The real question is what you should do instead. The proof game. In the early 2000s, a young entrepreneur walked into a room full of skeptical investors. Every other founder before him had shown up with elaborate pitch decks, charts, projections, and passionate arguments about why their product would change the world. This person brought something different. He placed the product on the table and said 3 words: try it yourself. Actions speak louder. That is the proof game. Instead of telling people why you are right, you show them. Instead of arguing about your value, you demonstrate it. Instead of convincing someone with words, you make reality itself do the convincing for you. And here is why this works on a deep psychological level. When you see something with your own eyes, your brain processes it completely differently than when someone describes it to you. Seeing is visceral. Hearing an argument is intellectual, and visceral always defeats intellectual. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. This is exactly why a single before and after photo is worth more than 1,000 perfectly crafted arguments. Proof needs no permission, and it needs no argument. The moment you understand this, everything changes. But this gets even more interesting when you examine the emotional mechanics behind power dynamics. Emotional chess. Here is something most people never consider. When you argue with someone, you are not playing chess. You are playing emotional chess, and the rules are completely different from what you think. In emotional chess, the person who cares the least always wins. Every argument you have ever had was never really about the topic. It was about status. It was about who gets to be right. It was about whose version of reality gets validated. And the moment you engage in any argument, you have already communicated something devastating about yourself. You have communicated that the other person's opinion matters enough to threaten yours. He who angers you conquers you. Think about the people who truly intimidate you. The ones who seem untouchable, unreachable, operating on a different plane. Do they argue? Do they get into heated debates? Never. They make decisions. They take actions. They let their results silence every critic. Silence is pure strategy. When someone attacks them, they do not defend. They build. When someone questions them, they do not explain. They produce. That refusal to engage is the most sophisticated form of dominance. The powerful do not need your agreement or your approval, and that is precisely what makes them powerful. But how does this principle translate into real wealth and tangible success? The power shift. Let me give you a formula that will permanently rewire how you think about influence. Every single time you argue, you are trading long-term power for short-term satisfaction. Every time. Think about the most respected person in your workplace right now. Is it the one who argues in every meeting, who always needs to have the last word? Or is it the one who speaks rarely, but when they do, the entire room stops and listens? There is a psychological principle called the scarcity effect. Things that are rare are automatically perceived as more valuable. Speak only if it improves upon the silence. This principle applies to your words just as powerfully as it applies to diamonds and gold. When you argue constantly, your words become cheap. When you speak rarely and act decisively, every word you utter carries weight. Every statement you make becomes an event. Rare words, heavy impact. Robert Greene calls this creating an air of mystery around yourself. When people cannot predict what you will say or do next, they assign you more power. They watch you more carefully. They listen more intently. Predictability is the death of power and the birth of irrelevance. The shift happens the moment you stop trying to convince and start choosing to demonstrate. But this principle becomes even more critical when we talk about money and wealth. Wealth silence. Have you ever noticed that truly wealthy people almost never talk about money? They do not argue about investments online. They do not debate financial strategies with strangers in comment sections. They just quietly build their empires in silence. And there is a profound reason for this pattern. Every self-made billionaire follows the same approach. They let their portfolio speak for them. They let their business results speak for them. They let their lifestyle speak for them. They never waste a single calorie of energy convincing anyone of anything. Real wealth whispers. It never has to shout. Now contrast that with what you see on the internet every single day. People arguing about which cryptocurrency will moon. People debating whether real estate beats stocks. People fighting in comment sections about financial strategies. And notice carefully who is doing all the arguing. It is almost never the people who actually have wealth. The ones with real money are too busy making more of it to waste precious time arguing about it. Your income is directly proportional to your discipline with words. Studies from Harvard Business Review show that executives who speak less in meetings but deliver consistently are promoted 47% faster than their more vocal peers. In the world of power and wealth, silence is not just golden. Silence is currency. And speaking of currency, there is a dark side to this law that you absolutely need to be aware of. The dark side. Every weapon can be turned against you. And Law 9 is absolutely no exception. Warning, there are people in your life right now who use this exact law to manipulate you. They stay silent not out of genuine wisdom, but out of cold calculation. They withhold approval to keep you chasing them. They refuse to engage because they know that their silence drives you insane. Silent treatment is warfare. The silent treatment in relationships is a weaponized version of this law. A boss who never gives you feedback but demands perfection is using this law against you. A friend who never responds to your messages but expects you to always be available is playing this exact game. The best weapon against an enemy is another enemy. So how do you actually defend against it? You recognize it for exactly what it is: manipulation through strategic absence. And then you do the most powerful thing possible in response. You refuse to let their silence control your actions or emotions. You stop chasing their approval. You stop trying to fill their silence with your desperate noise. You match their energy with your own strategic composure. Because the only person who can be manipulated by silence is someone who is desperate to be heard. Remove the desperation, and you remove their power over you completely. But knowing the dark side is only half the battle. Let me show you how to actually use this law every single day. Daily weapons. Let me give you the practical blueprint that you can start using tomorrow morning. These are the daily situations where Law 9 will transform your life immediately. 1. When criticized at work, deliver results instead of excuses. 2. When someone provokes you online, let your success be the only response. 3. When your ideas are rejected, build a prototype instead of a presentation. 4. When someone doubts you, show them in 6 months instead of arguing today. Here is the pattern you should notice. Every single one of these situations replaces words with action. Every single one trades the short-term pleasure of being right for the long-term power of being absolutely undeniable. Well done is better than well said. Start tomorrow morning with this exercise. For one full day, do not argue with anyone about anything at all. When someone says something you disagree with, simply say, "Interesting, I will think about that." Then go do what you were going to do anyway. Do not argue, demonstrate. Watch what happens. Watch how people start treating you differently. Watch how your stress drops. Watch how your influence quietly begins to rise without you saying a single word. One day of strategic silence will teach you more than a year of arguments. You will feel the difference within 24 hours. I guarantee it. And that brings us to the final piece of this entire puzzle. The mastery code. Everything we have discussed today comes down to one single paradigm shift that will change the trajectory of your entire life. Stop trying to be right and start being undeniable. That is the mastery code. That is what separates people who merely read Robert Greene from people who actually live Robert Greene. Most people will watch this video and agree with everything I have said today. They will nod their heads. They will think, yes, I should definitely argue less. And then tomorrow morning, someone will say something they disagree with, and they will fall right back into the exact same trap they have always fallen into. Because knowing is not the same as doing. Understanding the law is not the same as using the law. The 48 laws of power are not a book to read once and display on a shelf. They are a manual for daily practice and daily discipline. And Law 9, win through your actions, never through argument, is the foundation upon which all other laws rest. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Because every other law becomes easier when you stop wasting energy on arguments that lead nowhere. Every power move becomes smoother when you operate through demonstration rather than explanation. Your actions are the only argument that never loses. The question is no longer whether this law works. The question is whether you have the discipline to actually use it. Let me leave you with this final thought. Every single day you wake up with a choice. You can spend your energy proving other people wrong, or you can spend that same energy proving yourself right, not to them, to yourself. Through your actions, your results, your undeniable progress. Actions over arguments always. Robert Greene did not write Law 9 as a casual suggestion. He wrote it as a warning. Because every single moment you spend arguing is a moment you are not building, not creating, not becoming the person who needs no validation from anyone. The best revenge is massive success. If you made it this far, comment LAW9 mastered to prove you are among the rare few who truly understand this principle and are ready to live it. Your mind is either programmed for power or programmed for arguments. Now you know how to reprogram it. If this exposed something in you, subscribe. There is much more to uncover.